Movies are a lot like magic tricks. The best magic tricks, or in this case, the best movies, always leave the audience wanting more. The worst magic tricks always leave an audience scratching their heads. Occasionally, and especially in this day and age, a good magic trick is a once-in-a-lifetime moment. But more often than not, there are some movies out there where the magic feels cheap, to the point where you as a viewer start to wonder what the artist or the magician or the filmmaker was trying to say. Sometimes the way a movie fails is part of the problem, the execution of a movie, and other times it's just a bad idea to begin with. Now, I don't go into movies wanting them to be bad, because, let's be honest, who the hell would? That being said, I've seen a handful of movies that at best make me ask, what the hell were you even thinking, dude? And at worst, make me want to go upside their head. The following movies that I'm about to address are, in my personal opinion, some of the worst movies I've seen in the last decade. These are the movies that I think are either poorly executed or bad ideas to begin with, range from incredibly boring to straight up obnoxious, or all of the above. And be on the lookout for spoilers as well. And fair warning, I've only seen half of these movies, so what I'm about to say is going to feel very scattered. So if you haven't seen any of the movies I'm about to list, I suggest you pause the video so you can catch up. These are my top 10 worst movies of the 2010s. Edit. Starting at number 10, from 2010, we have Clash of the Titans, the remake. Cards on the table, I'm not a Greek mythology guy, or a Norse mythology guy either. It's half the reason I have no interest in the Thor films. But even if I was, I have a feeling that wouldn't do me any good. Much like whatever the hell Io was supposed to be, the Clash of the Titans remake seems a little bit confused about what it is. What's the plot? This won't take long. Sam Worthington's character, Perseus, yeah, that's not going to happen. Sam Worthington's character, not Hercules, is a half-human, half-immortal man who finds himself in a war between humans and immortals. To make a long story short, Hades, played by Ralph Fiennes, declares war on the city of Argos because reasons. He's kind of an asshole. He wants the Princess Andromeda sacrificed in 10 days or Argos gets eaten by the Kraken. Parallel to this, not Hercules, okay, I'm just going to call him Vince. Vince wants revenge on Zeus for killing his adoptive father, but it turns out Sam Jackson was right when he said that Zeus couldn't keep it in his pants, because Vince is actually the son of Zeus and is seemingly the only person out of 1,000 warriors who can bring Hades down. This is what I mean when I say not Hercules. Come to think of it, I'm honestly not sure what the hell Hercules is up to during all this bullshit. And yes, I know some people are going to say, it's Heracles, motherfucker, not Hercules. I don't give a damn. The entire movie, people were telling Vince that he needs to embrace his immortal side, but Vince isn't for that talk. Zeus, played by Liam Neeson, wants Vince to take his rightful place among the immortals on Mount Olympus, and even offers him asylum on Olympus. But Vince won't have it. Mind you, he apparently needs the head of Medusa to get rid of the Kraken before it decimates Argos. At some point, Vince gets his hands on a sword that was forged in Olympus, but because Vince is half immortal, it only works for him. Unsurprisingly, Vince won't use it. And after using said Millennium Sword to banish Hades to the underworld, Andromeda wants to appoint Vince as the new king of Argos in gratitude for destroying the Kraken, and what a shock, Vince won't have it. He is, however, willing to marry Andromeda. Anybody else noticing a pattern here? The movie keeps presenting Sam Worthington's character with the same question over and over again, when it's obvious the character's already made up its mind. And to my recollection, his adoptive father, Spyros, never comes up again. It ends with Vince and Andromeda literally riding off into the sunset together on a Pegasus. And this feels like the ending to a story Clash of the Titans either didn't or chose not to tell. If that's how you wanted to end it, Vince and Andromeda needed more screen time to sell the relationship. And damn it, this really should have been Vince and Andromeda's story. A, I like Alexa Davalos as an actress and she looks good standing next to Sam Worthington, and B, Io is essentially the same ass character as Tamina from the somewhat forgettable Prince of Persia movie, and no, I don't really care about her either. Oh, did I forget to mention that? While all of this is going on, Vince spends the majority of his time being followed by a nymph named Io, played by Gemma Arterton. Apparently, Io has spent most of her life watching over Vince, which is 6 different kinds of creepy if you stop to think about it for longer than 5 seconds. And this nymph does the exact same thing in this movie that Tamina does for Jake Gyllenhaal in that movie, wasting a motherfucker's time. Performances are hit and miss, but it's difficult to give a good performance when your script is mid. Sam Worthington, Liam Neeson, Alexa Davalos, Mads Mikkelsen, Gemma Arterton, and Ray Fiennes, as well as director Louis Leterrier, needed a stronger script. As much as I like Dredd and the Total Recall remake, one of these days, somebody's going to have to take a stand against these live-action remakes. One of these days, somebody's going to have to say enough. Also, would someone care to explain to me what is the ever-loving purpose of that mechanical owl? Number 9. Fan4stick from 2015. Okay, real talk, I need to get something off my chest before I go any further. I have never cared about the Fantastic Four as a concept, much less as characters. The Fantastic Four are supposed to be Marvel's first family. They account for more than 2/3 of the reasons Marvel Comics have been successful over time. They're half the reason the 10-year run of the Marvel Cinematic Universe even exists. Marvel wouldn't be a thing without the Fantastic Four. Yet in damn near everything I've seen them in, they don't function very well as a team, much less a family. As a team, they're disorganized, dysfunctional, uncoordinated, emotionally unstable, and easily manipulated. As a family, they seem to have it even worse. You could make the case for Johnny and Sue Storm since they're related, but on the whole, the Fantastic Four never really feels like a family to me. Half of them are conceited, you can probably guess which half, and the other half take too long to get a damn clue, to the point where it's impossible to imagine any of them getting along. How many times have we seen Sue Storm get pissed off at Reed Richards for not paying attention to her and her needs? How many times have we had to listen to Sue Storm cussing out her brother for being an asshole? How many times has Johnny Storm used Ben Grimm as the butt of an unfunny joke? You see, it's a trick question because the answer is too damn often. For all of his intelligence, Reed Richards in particular often comes off as a clueless idiot who doesn't understand humans. And despite appearances, the Fantastic Four never really grow as people, never mind a group, or learn from their mistakes. It's not funny, cute, or charming. It just makes them feel like accidental supervillains. And the key word here is accidental. Reed, Sue, and Johnny don't intend to be assholes who make things worse. It just happens, even when it makes no sense whatsoever. And some people will argue that the Fantastic Four is supposed to be a sitcom. That's part of its charm, right? Well, the trouble is, the Fantastic Four doesn't really bill itself as a sitcom. It tends to advertise itself as a lighthearted science fiction family adventure. Like, imagine Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy meets Lost in Space meets Men in Black. More on that later. But there's a difference between a story that's lighthearted and a story that only exists for juvenile sitcom hijinks. And sadly, the first 2 live-action FF movies, directed by Tim Story, don't really seem to know when enough's enough, because that's all those movies are. Comedy movies. Oh, there are shreds of friendship in these movies, don't get me wrong. There are also some shreds of menace, but A, it's not enough, and B, it's tonally at odds with the rest of the movie. It's also ironic that the first 2 Fantastic Four movies are directed by a guy named Story, yet the movies themselves have no story. It's just some bullshit rom-com nonsense. And speaking of Victor Von Doom, the Fantastic Four apparently also has 32 villains in their rogues gallery. Yet, we've only seen them deal with 2 enemies so far, one of them twice. Yes, I'm including the Silver Surfer in that. So needless to say, the 2015 Fantastic Four movie, Fan4stick, had a lot to live up to. Not only did it have to improve and be a better movie than the first 2 FF movies, not only did it need to do something different to keep people who aren't fans of the Fantastic Four interested and keep the rights away from Marvel Studios, but it also had to provide a good reason for why I should give a damn about the Fantastic Four as people as well as a team. And it failed. Spectacularly. Fan4stick had 2 things going against it. The first thing it had going against it was the previous movies and their aforementioned track record under Fox. The second thing Fan4stick had going against it was Josh Trank's direction on top of his grievances with the studio. Simply put, Fox and Trank weren't on the same page about what kind of Fantastic Four movie they wanted to make. For a more in-depth explanation for why that is, I'd recommend watching Captain Logan's review of Fan4stick on Superhero Rewind on the Geekvolution channel. I'll be sure to put the link in the description if I haven't already. But some of you may be wondering, what exactly would I want from a new live-action Fantastic Four movie? And my answer is, a good movie. The trouble with Fan4stick isn't that it's a bad movie, or that it's a bad Fantastic Four movie. The trouble with Fan4stick is that it isn't a movie, period. So you know how when good video games get released and halfway through playing the damn thing you run into at least 1 or 2 or even 5 game-breaking glitches, at least half of which would cause the game to crash, and the producers have to put out a patch online to fix the bugs so that the game is running smooth and pretty again? Well, imagine that kind of thing happening for an hour and 40 minutes. I know, sounds hella agonizing, but that's basically what Fanforstic is. A never-ending series of glitches that crashes the movie. Fanforstic, unfortunately, has more than just 5. It has an entire field of glitches, and there simply aren't enough patches that can be done to keep this movie from crashing. Not only does this movie waste Miles Teller, it also wastes Michael B. Jordan and Kate Mara, and in Mara's case, twice. People who have seen the movie likely know what I'm talking about. It's easy to forget that Jamie Bell is even in the damn movie, even after he becomes the Thing. And even if there were enough patches to fix the glitches, even if by some freak of nature Fox and Trank were on the same page, it wouldn't be enough to solve the core problem. I still have no idea why I'm supposed to care about the Fantastic Four, as people or as a group. I said earlier that the Fantastic Four always come off as accidental supervillains, emphasis on accidental, but the Fantastic Four we see in Fanforstic don't even have that distinction going for them, because it's hard to tell in the moment when a person is making a choice and when they're not. The only time it feels like they're making a choice is when Reed, Johnny, and Victor Von Doom, nay Domashev, start drinking together after completing the dimensional portal with Sue Storm's help, and Victor goes into a soliloquy about how no one remembers the scientists who helped the astronauts get to the moon, which is a whole other can of worms I don't even want to get into right now. And to that end, Reed decides to invite his friend Ben Grimm over to the Baxter building because in this movie, Reed and Ben actually worked on the project together since elementary school, where he, Ben, Johnny, and Victor intend to be the first human team to travel to the other dimension, but not Sue Storm. She's not invited. And before I go any further, I have a question. Why the hell did the Fantastic Four movies made under 20th Century Fox insist on making Victor Von Doom, this impersonal, holier-than-thou, man-in-the-iron mask looking thug-ass motherfucker, an integral part of the Fantastic Four's origins? Why would you want to pull that twice with 10 years in between? Why is Victor Von Doom? And it's not like the protagonists have anything going for them either. The best thing I can say about the main cast is that they're decently cast, with the possible exception of Toby Kebbell as Victor Von Doom, nay Domashev, though performances leave a lot to be desired. Unlike the Tim Story movies, Sue Storm isn't obnoxious in Fanforstic. Often, she's barely in the damn movie. They quite literally made the Invisible Woman invisible, physically and figuratively. Here, Johnny's the obnoxious one, though instead of being hungry for attention, he's got a chip on his shoulder because his father keeps harassing him. First, Johnny's father, Franklin Storm, tells him that he's not applying himself, and then later on, after the 1-year time jump, he and Sue accuse Johnny of being reckless by leaning into his new gifts, his new ability that allows him to flame on. And no one really gives a f***. I certainly didn't give a f***. I mean, Johnny didn't even want to be there in the first place. You motherfuckers blackmailed him about his car into your little science experiment, and now that he's leaning into the very thing that made him an enhanced individual, y'all are surprised. Why? But that's not even the movie's biggest kick in the nuts. Why is the 1-year time skip? Now, do I think Miles Teller is a weird casting choice for Reed Richards? Yes. Do I think it's his fault that Reed Richards makes no sense? No, not really. Now, you might be thinking, what does Reed Richards not making sense have to do with the 1-year time skip? A lot. I have to say, Reed Richards never felt like a person in the Fantastic Four movies, or in any of the things I've seen this fucker in. I can't empathize with Reed Richards because there's nothing for me to empathize with. He's either a compulsive asshole, or a clueless idiot, or both. But Miles Teller's Reed doesn't even have that distinction going for him. He's actually kind of random. In the span of an entire year, Reed Richards, who may I remind you, built and field tested a damn teleportation device all the way back in 2007, back when he was still a youngin', has gone from Gary Stu's science wizard to international fugitive, and he's still a blank slate. At the risk of echoing Captain Logan, while I like the idea of Reed Richards being able to shapeshift, nothing about Reed's characterization thus far, or his setup, screams that he's this competent. And considering that this entire f***ing situation is half his fault, I'm not so sure if I buy that he's managed to evade the US government for an entire year, especially if he's dense enough to use Captain Nemo as a username or a password. Yeah, apparently this mofo has a fascination with Captain Nemo. Don't ask me why. And even with that, Reed still doesn't feel like a person. Hey, Mr. Nitro, have you seen John Krasinski as Mr. Fantastic? I don't care. And he still hasn't found a cure for his or anyone else's condition. Why, after an entire year, is Reed Richards still stuck on stupid with this shit?